Hello everybody, BMR here today with a BP04 tier list video. It's been 2 days since the new set released, and based on my research in the Japanese meta and also my personal expectations, I put together my personal rankings on where I think all of these decks are on terms of the power scale. So without further ado, we'll go with the tier 1 decks. So Egghaven, it was already pretty strong in the previous meta, but now they've got a new card called Andromeda. So what this card does is, when you play it on the same turn as your egg, it protects all of your board from being destroyed by the egg effect. So what that means is, say you have Andromeda, egg, and Alice in the field. When you blow up with egg, you keep the Alice, the 4/4, you keep the egg, which is also 4/4, and you keep a 2/2. So a lot of decks can't properly deal with the fact that you just cleared their entire board, and now you've got a board that they have to answer. So in addition to its previous strengths, now it has like a I win button against certain decks. So this is going to be very strong in not only this current expansion, but also BP05. So definitely worth kind of committing to and investing into if you want to win your local tournaments. The next deck is Midrange Elephant. So this plays very similarly to the Midrange Forest in the previous expansions, but it's got a few new tools. So first of all, it's got Sakuna. So this card, when it evolves, it gains Storm and bonus stats based on combo played. Very effective in terms of poking the opponent down and doing, early aggression in general. Also, you want to pick up, Spring Green Protection. So this card, it can be used to kind of build up your combo, but also when it gets cracked, you can buff your followers and also gives you a wisp for future combo plays. So works really well with Sakuna, works well with Tier, works well with basically your entire deck. The other card is Fashionista Inertia. So this card, primarily you're using it to buff a follower in your field and putting it outside of the range of them to use, egg to clear your entire board or something like that. It's well statted, it's good to cast follower. You've got a lot of ways to use it. As always, you've also got the healing from Marvelous Sunday, so it puts it in a good position in meta. You'll notice that you're no longer running the Uma version of Rose Gardener. You're playing this one because when you have combo 3, you draw a card, which keeps your hand size up for not only Cassiopeia, which can clear your board and kind of bridge the gap between turn 5 to turn 6, 7, etc. But also because you're running King Elephant, which is probably the most impactful forest card in this expansion. So what it does is you bounce any number of cards in your field, you return them to the owner's hands, and it gains stats based on the number of cards in your hand. In addition, you can evolve it, and it basically gains the effect again. So you can frequently attack for 13 damage, and it ignores ward. So this card is exceptionally powerful. It's your new best finisher, but some lists, including the sample list here, they still run Silverbolt. You'll notice also that this deck is exceptionally cheap. It's under 100 USD, and if you've been playing since set 1, you probably have a lot of the more expensive cards already. So definitely consider picking this up. It's most likely going to be one of the top 2 decks of the meta. Moving on to tier 2, go Control Abyss. Disclaimer, I did kind of merge the Ektar and the more traditional discard healing together as the same archetype because I didn't want to have too many Abyss decks in the tier list. So just consider them roughly the same deck for now. So basically the new package, it runs Lelouch, and it runs a large amount of Necro charge cards, right? So you mill your deck, and then once you get to 10, you want to play Azazel, you use the effect, you drop your opponent's HP to 10, and then if they can't clear Azazel, you'll kill them straight away with Lelouch, which can bring back Less Mummy, which has Storm. Now, if they do clear Azazel, you just keep going to hit 20 Necro charge, and now you're Lelouch. It brings back the Less Mummies, but it gives them +3/+3. So when you bring that back, it easily does 10 damage. So that's pretty much the more consistent way of kind of dealing with the meta. It can kill as early as turn 7, but if they do clear the Azazel, it might take a little bit longer to do so. Very powerful deck, and also it's very cheap. Pretty much all you really need are Marazenskis and starter deck cards, and everything else are kind of gold. So it's worth suggesting to your friends if they're kind of newer to the game as well. And also it uses collaboration cards, which might be a good segue, to get your friends in who are into Code Geass and card games in general. As for the more control healing discard package, so essentially what you're running now is running Israfil, so that comes back from Death Breath, and so you can kind of play a longer game where you can easily clear opponent's board, heal, etc. That deck is also viable, but this one is more easy to recommend to other players because it's cheaper. The next deck is Hero Sword. So Hero Sword, very similar to before. The upgrade's really cheap. You see 3 copies of Perseus. It's a 2/2 follower against bonus effect if you have 4 or more followers in the field. Flail Knight, so it's a premium 2-drop. Basically, it's 2/3 star line, which is very strong. When it attacks, you can ping something for 1 damage, and it hits the leader as well for 1. So, very strong for tempo, and also Armor of the Stars. So this card, use it at the right time on the right follower. It's really hard for the opponent to answer this. You get a lot of damage, and sometimes your follower lives for 2 turns and gets hit face twice. So this card is very strong. You want to pick up 2 copies. Can pretty much be used in many different sword decks, to be perfectly honest. Okay, Uma Musume. So this deck is still strong. The only reason it's in tier 2 is because it has a pretty bad matchup against Egg Haven, especially now with the Andromeda combo. But this deck remains very strong into pretty much every other deck in the meta. So it's only because I expect there to be a lot of Egg Haven that it's in tier 2. Otherwise, continue running it. It doesn't matter if it's Smart Falcon build or more traditional build. Deck's still strong. Discard Dragon, so you can either run the more traditional build from BP02, CP01, etc., or you can use a new package, which is Star Phoenix and Dragon New Fist. So Dragon New Fist, you can just recur it from the EXO. And Star Phoenix is a new card where basically when you play a spell, you can bring it back from your cemetery for 1 play point. And, you know, it's free stats, right? So that's kind of like the new way you can play Discard Dragon. I think Discard Dragon is still good. Strong tier 2 deck. I think this expansion is pretty good if you're a Dragon player. I mean, sure, you're not tier 1 anymore, but you've got like 3 viable builds, which are all kind of playable right now. Moving along, we've got Beating the Beast Forest. So this card, main thing is it now runs Rose Garden instead of Asian Flash, because the drawing cards is actually sort of relevant. Runs Cassiopeia, which helps bridge the turn between turn 5 and 6, and then being able to play Beauty and Beast to storm damage. It helps control the board too. And then of course 3 copies of King Elephant. Again, this is like, for those games where you can't get Beauty and the Beast to kind of like finish off your opponent, because you didn't get lucky with the Woodland Band, something like that. So the deck overall is a little bit more consistent than what's in the previous set. That's why it maintains its position in tier 2. Otherwise it might have fallen off already. In terms of tier 3, so again, I've merged Midrange Abyss with Aggro Abyss. Depending on how the tournament environment changes, I might split them out, but for now, let's consider them roughly the same deck. So one of the popular builds is just running strong kind of early game Evolve followers, and then afterwards kind of control the board until you can reach Dark Alice. And this is really hard for a lot of decks to answer. Only like, the cards that bounce back to hand, for instance, or banishes actually clear this properly. And once this sticks, it's 6 damage, and then you can finish it off with either Alucard for 6 damage or something like that, or you can use Howling Demon, and then this, when it evolves, is 7 damage to face. So that's kind of like how the mid-range Abyss works. And then aggro, I think, is slightly stronger if it's not popular. You can use like the previous builds as kind of a reference point, and then you can use Howling Demon as a new kind of finisher option. So that's mid-range and aggro Abyss. PDK Dragon, so the concept of this deck is you want to get Prime Dragon Keeper down the board, and then you want to play as many kind of like 3 cost or lower Dragon followers. It pings the opponent leader and their field, and eventually you can try to finish it off. So, I mean, Jabberwock is in this build. It's not that common, but I think it does work. Basically, you play this, and you can kind of bring out eventually Genesis Dragon, right? And then basically this can be a finisher. So it's a fun deck. I think it's good enough. Give it a try. And then if you don't like this particular build, you can try other builds. But yeah, I think various variations of PDK Dragon are viable in this expansion, especially at the local level. Just give it a try and see what works for you. Now, as for Ramp Dragon, so it's also got a few new tools. So Dragon's Nest, it can cure you and draw cards in Overflow. And then also you can see like, Genesis Dragon sort of back because it's pretty good against Eggheaven, to be honest. And then Israfil, basically this heals you and it can clear the entire board. And then obviously you've got more ramp options with Sybil, so it helps bridge you to Genesis Dragon. And then of course Lightning Blast, which can quick spell, banish follower, and if you have enough play points, you can banish the entire field instead. So Ramp Dragon, it really does kind of feel like the BP01 version, to be honest. But yeah, this is a fun deck, if not extremely expensive. But yeah, I think it's viable too. Roundtable Sword, so this is a new sword list. If you don't want to play Hero Sword, you can play this instead. It's really up to you. I don't really have too many thoughts about this, to be honest. I mean, it managed to win a few local tournaments in Japan, and it's a fairly cheap deck. I mean, Mars and Gawain are super cheap. May as well give it a try, right? I mean, this might go down a tier based on how it goes in the English meta, but I don't think it's necessarily bad. Giant Chimera, so again, I've kind of merged Spell Chain together, so you can run D-Shift, you can run, like, these other variations, but main one that you saw the most in Japan was the Giant Chimera build. If there's like a new Spell Chain build, I'll add it, obviously, but I think Spell Chain in general is solid tier 3. This deck in particular, the main idea is you want to get roughly 30 cards in your cemetery, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's follower or if it's spell, because Daria, when you play it, it converts all of them into Spell Chain. So the main combo is, say you're going first, if you reach, I believe it's turn 9. So you play Daria, you get the Giant Chimera into your EX zone, you evolve Daria for 1 mana, and then use, this is discounted by 5, so you can play it for 2, and then this does 30 damage with Spell Chain 30. So that's effectively how this deck will work. Of course, depending on the matchup, you might have to play it a little bit differently. You might even go to play a little bit more aggressively in some matchups, but yeah, it's a fun deck. It's probably the most viable Spell Chain deck, but I think D-Shift is okay too. I mean, if you're a Rune player, finally, I think your deck is sort of like, able to win local tournaments, so that's a good thing. And then it only gets better in BP05, to be honest. You don't necessarily run Giant Chimera, but you can run Luciana Control instead, which is good. And then for tier 4 decks, so look, Stormhaven, I'm only putting it here because it's an honorable mention. I don't know if it did particularly well in Japan, but my view is this, right? This deck is strong against Egghaven because you're just hitting their face repeatedly. And with Egghaven being very strong, I think Stormhaven needs some level of consideration. And the Control Haven, again, I think this deck is slightly better now against Egghaven as well, because, there's so much healing involved, and Egghaven can eventually run out of burn damage, so I think Control Haven might have a place in the meta, but again, I just didn't see much of it in Japan in this particular set, because Egghaven was just a more prominent Haven deck. But I wanted to have these here just as, considerations, and these might move up if someone in English manages to cook up a good list, maybe with Ether or something like that, but yeah, for now it's just in tier 4. If there's any decks I've missed, of course, I just couldn't put every deck into this tier list. It's a pretty long tier list already. But I will do a follow-up tier list video after another BSS have occurred. I do expect the tier 1 and tier 2 to be fairly accurate. So let's check back in and see how we go. On top of that, if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. And also, you'll notice that with all of the lists here, you can actually check kind of the prices as well. So if you click any of these links, you'll be taking TCG Player, and then if you then purchase any of the cards, you directly help us out. We get a small commission from TCG Player, and it helps us run the server and all of that stuff. We've also got additional features that are on the way, so make sure to look forward to that. That's all from me, and I will see you guys next time.